Malcolm-Jamal Warner, dead at the age of 54 on a drowning accident while he was vacationing with his family.
There's just so much, there's so much negativity in the world. There's so much, and again, look, it's current events, right? It's news. A lot of us keep up with the news through our social media happenings. But I just find that with social media, I kind of get this feeling a lot because just so much of it is just drenched in negativity.
On the morning of July 20th, 2025, fans around the world were jolted awake by a headline no one saw coming. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, actor, poet, musician, and beloved star of The Cosby Show, was gone. The cause? Drowning? But what truly shook people wasn't just his death. It was who was with him when it happened. Initial reports claimed he had been swimming in Costa Rica, enjoying a quiet vacation, when tragedy struck. But then came the detail that made hearts drop. His 8-year-old daughter was reportedly with him. It didn't take long for the rumors to spiral. Was she caught in the current too? Did he die trying to save her? The media rushed to fill in the blanks. Stories conflicted, timelines blurred. And for a brief moment, the world held its breath, not just for the loss of a beloved star, but for the child he left behind.
There's my daughter's birthday. She put the flower there, so I'm rocking it. What?
She was. Just a little girl, a face the public never knew. But now, suddenly, her life was at the center of one of the most heartbreaking stories of the year, and the truth behind what really happened that day was far more devastating than anyone imagined. But this was only the beginning. Asterisk, as the fog of confusion began to clear, the heartbreaking details came into focus. Malcolm-Jamal Warner had traveled to Costa Rica for a short vacation, a brief escape from the spotlight, a quiet moment with loved ones. On that fateful day, he was on the beach with his daughter and a close friend. The ocean looked calm, safe. But within moments of stepping into the water, the unthinkable happened. A sudden rip current and scene, unprovoked, pulled Malcolm and his companion out to sea. It all unfolded so fast, no one had time to react. Local authorities confirmed the terrifying truth. They were both caught in the current, pulled under, far from the reach of safety. But then, out of nowhere, surfers appeared. Witnesses say a group of surfers, along with 2 vacationing doctors, sprang into action. One surfer managed to reach Warner's daughter and pulled her to shore. She was shaken but safe. Another reached Malcolm, himself unconscious, unresponsive, dragging him back to land where CPR began immediately. For 45 minutes, doctors and medics worked desperately to revive him. A defibrillator was used. Chest compressions. Breath after breath, but it wasn't enough. Despite every effort, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was pronounced dead on the beach. And in a quiet corner of that same shore, his daughter stood watching, stunned, and now fatherless. She was just 8 years old. And what followed was even more confusing. Asterisk, in the chaotic hours after the tragedy, conflicting reports flooded the media. Some headlines claimed that Warner drowned while trying to save his daughter, suggesting she was caught in the same rip current. Others implied they were swimming together when the current hit. For fans, the emotional weight was unbearable. Was she nearly taken to? But then came clarification. Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Police OIJ released a statement to set the record straight. According to their official timeline, Malcolm-Jamal Warner's daughter was never in the water. She had stayed safely on shore while her father and a close friend entered the ocean. The rip current struck the 2 adults, not the child. The OIJ confirmed she was not pulled by the current. She did not need rescuing. The surfers who helped her did so as a precaution, not a recovery. Still, the emotional trauma of watching her father, her protector, get carried out to sea, only to see his body return to shore. That moment is unimaginable. The truth offered some relief, but it didn't lessen the pain, because the real heartbreak wasn't that she almost drowned. It was that she watched the person who meant everything to her slip away. And behind that tragedy was a bond most people never saw. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just a father. He was that father, the kind who protected his daughter from the spotlight, who turned down interviews when they got too personal, and who rarely, if ever, shared her face online. Her name was never public, her photos never posted. To the world, she was invisible. But to him, she was everything. Friends say their bond was unbreakable. Promoter and longtime friend J. Scott Fugate said, "Can't tell you how much he loved his little girl, Anne. She loved him so much." They shared car rides full of laughter. Inside jokes no one else understood. He would even sit with her watching reruns of The Cosby Show, explaining scenes, characters, and choices, letting her see the man he used to be. He protected her childhood like a fortress. He once said in an interview, "She has the rest of her life to be online. Right now, I just want her to be a child. I want her to be." He lived for her joy. And when he was with her, the actor, the poet, the artist, all of that faded away. He was just dad. And now that little girl will grow up holding on to that memory instead of his hand. But the most emotional part of this story was still to come. Malcolm-Jamal Warner was known for keeping his personal life out of the tabloids, and that was no accident. He wasn't interested in Hollywood drama or flashy Instagram fame. While other celebrities broadcast every family milestone, Warner took the opposite approach. He protected his home life like sacred ground. He never revealed his daughter's name publicly, not once. And though he shared rare glimpses of fatherhood in interviews and podcast appearances, he always drew a line. He didn't need the world to know who she was. He only wanted her to grow up unbothered by it. Still, his love for her echoed through every word. In a quiet 2023 podcast episode of Not All Hood, Warner reflected on how fatherhood had changed him. His voice softened as he said, "There's a joy I never understood before, the kind you don't need applause for. She makes the work worth it." In a rare 2024 Father's Day post, he shared a photo of two shadows on a beach, just him and her holding hands. The caption read, "She'll never need to see my resume. I'm her hero already." That post went viral, not because it was flashy, but because it was true. In a world where everyone overshares, Malcolm-Jamal Warner said, "More with silence." And in his final act of love, he left that legacy behind. But his final day may hold even more meaning than anyone realized. Asterisk, when Malcolm-Jamal Warner entered the ocean that day, it wasn't recklessness, it was routine. A quiet swim with a trusted friend. His daughter was on the beach safe, nearby. He likely thought it would be quick, easy, peaceful, but nature had other plans. The rip current that struck wasn't visible, were no warning signs. By the time he realized what was happening, he and his friend were already being pulled away. But even in that moment, panicked, fighting the current, one thing was clear: his daughter was not in the water. She was not in danger, and that mattered to him. What few people realize is that in those final minutes, he made the only choice a father could. He went into the ocean without her. She was never by his side in the water. He left her in safety. And according to the surfers and first responders on the beach, he never cried out for himself. His focus was on making sure she was okay, even as his own life slipped away. Warner's last act was one of protection. He didn't fight for headlines. He didn't perform for the cameras. He simply lived and died doing the one thing he cherished most, protecting his child. That kind of love doesn't disappear with a wave. It echoes in silence, in memory, in the heart of the little girl who now walks this world without him, but never truly alone. And the world's response to his passing revealed just how deeply he was loved both on screen and off. The news of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death rippled through the world like a shockwave. Within hours, tributes poured in not just from celebrities and colleagues, but from millions of fans who had grown up with him. Social media turned into a digital memorial. Hashtags like #RipMalcolmJamal, #TVDadForever, #RealFather, trended across platforms, but the most powerful tributes didn't talk about his fame. It talked about his heart. Actors like Jeffrey Owens and Viola Davis remembered him, not as a co-star, but as the guy who stayed humble, who brought peace to every set. Musicians, writers, and poets he'd worked with described him as a creative force who never needed the spotlight. And fans who had met him in passing said the same thing. He listened. One Instagram tribute read, "I met him once at a bookshop. He knelt down to talk to my son not because of who I was, but because of who he was." Pure warmth. But no tribute hit harder than the quiet one shared by his longtime partner. She didn't post a long caption, just a single photo. Malcolm's. Hand holding his daughter's tiny fingers, the ocean in the background. No words, no tags. Just silence. It was the kind of silence that said everything. Because while the world was mourning an actor, she and their daughter were mourning home. And in that single image, the world was reminded, Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just a man we watched. He was a man who loved, fully, privately, and without fail. But even in death, he left behind a legacy bigger than any role he ever played. Malcolm-Jamal Warner spent his entire life choosing purpose over popularity. He could have chased the spotlight. He could have made headlines, sold stories, or branded his family for the cameras. But he didn't. He chose a quieter kind of legacy built not on fame, but on love, consistency, and presence. In the end, it wasn't his Emmy nominations or his breakout role on The Cosby Show that defined him. It wasn't even his poetry, his music, or his speeches. It was his daughter. She was just a child protected, cherished, and unseen by the public eye. And now she carries forward the most powerful truth her father ever shared, that being a good man, a good father, and a quiet protector is a kind of greatness no award can measure. The world may remember Malcolm-Jamal Warner for his work on screen, but she remember him for the way he made her laugh on the beach, for the way he held her hand when no one else was looking, the way he showed up every single time with nothing but love. And while the world will keep asking how he died, she'll spend the rest of her life remembering how he lived. And that is the legacy that truly matters.